We ready. What's up? It's Wednesday. It's 9 p.m. So you know what that means. I'm your girl, Dani. That's my girl, Terri. Right below, that's our special guest for tonight, Coach Ron Prince.
Ladies.
Welcome to episode 7 of Hits and Heels with Coach Terri and Dani. We are so glad you guys are here tonight. And before we get started, I have to make this announcement. Okay. My aunt called me on, I'm getting my days mixed up. I believe it was Sunday. It may have been Monday. All I know is that we were watching football. So, you know, that could have been Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or Monday. But I'm pretty sure it was Sunday. She called and said, I never miss a show. I didn't even know she watched us. So my awesome auntie, Karen Gomez, all the way from Philly, Pennsylvania. I love you. We love you. Thank you for the love and support. I hope you're watching this live tonight so you can comment and tune in. She said she has learned so much from watching our show. That's what this show is all about. It's not only about getting on here and having fun, because if you know Terri and you know me, you know we're going to have a good time, right? But the goal of our show is also to empower, educate, and encourage women to learn about the game of football and empower women to get engaged in high-level positions in athletics or sports. So it's working. We doing our job. So Aunt Karen, I love you so much. Thank you for the phone call to tell me that you tune in every week. I hope you are tuning in tonight. I love you and thank you so much for your support.
Thank you, Auntie. Thank you, Auntie. Listen, can I take over? Yes, because I've been so freaking excited about this for months. When I first talked about doing a podcast, Ron was like, bring me on. You know, I thought he was playing, right? So, you know, so I said, I'm going to take him up on that. And so I called him. I was like, can you do it? He was like, of course. So he calls me Mims by my maiden name. But so if y'all know, you know, Terri Mims Bryant, that's the reason why y'all, if you hear him call me Mims, that's what he calls me. But let me give you a little background. We went to school together, like Junction City, Blue Jays for life, baby, in the house. Right. We grew up in the same neighborhood. He was a star athlete. I did my thing as an athlete, you know, so that's how we connected in high school, was because, you know, we were both two of the top athletes at our high school. And so then when he got the head coach job at Kansas State University, I emailed him. He still remembered who I was, and we've been thick as thieves ever since then. Right, Ron? So listen. Right. So listen. This is what y'all don't know. Over 30 years, he's been coaching college or NFL for over 30 years. And I think the biggest thing that I want y'all to know is he's got 4 kids. And all 4 children are D1 athletes. So when I tell y'all that you need to be getting some pen and a paper and take some copious notes, because I guarantee you're going to learn something tonight about how to empower your athlete or how to be a better parent to your athlete tonight. Ron, come on. Hey, go ahead and give us your bio. Hey. Tell us about you. Give us all the credentials.
Hey, so you know what? Shout out Lucky 7. Okay. Lucky 7. Shout out everybody who's here tonight. You know, who would have ever thought you grew up in a little small town in Kansas, you're playing in the backyard, throwing the ball up in the air, you know, 3, 2, 1, you take your shot at the goal. You do all these things as a little kid, and then who would think all these years later, you've spent a lifetime or a career playing around in the same game that you were using your imagination when you were little. Mm-hmm. So, that's been my journey to this point. It's been a lot of fun. I will tell you that one of the main reasons that I wanted to come on here with you guys is because what everybody needs to know is that, and I've given this presentation over the years, even when I was still active in coaching, but I would always tell everybody, this is not your father's recruiting. In other words, when a lot of our parents were coming up, if they even were being recruited, their moms weren't. There was no Title IX, right? Or it was limited. So it's a different era. It's a different, just in our short lifetime, for those of us who are, Gen Xers, it's not been that long ago where things were completely different. Not only that, things have changed so dramatically in the quote unquote revenue sports, football, basketball, etc., that we say in our house all the time, we have no idea how people do it without guidance. And because it's so complex and there's so many different people who have a vested interest in how this is going to go, they do it every year and you do it once. Now, when you let that sink in, when you think about that, there are people who are doing this 20, 30, 40 years for a living. And then here we come along with our one child or maybe two children or whatever it might be. And so we're going into this and your kid might be the only person in his high school to ever have been recruited.
Right.
And so when you talk about inequity in the recruiting process is the most in the whole sporting business of everything. It's that initial uncertainty and inequity because the colleges have all the information and you have an interested young person. That's how out of balance this relationship is in the beginning. So what I would say is that, the kind of the title of the talk I give now is a lot of people love football, but football loves no one.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? And
yes.
So you go into this thing with this love and this passion and this thing you've been doing since you were a kid. And now all of a sudden, you're trying to make a living or at least try to advance and elevate. As Coach Prime says, we want to elevate to a certain level. And yet the people who, are there at that level, they've got all the information and it's really difficult. So that's why I'm here, other than to, obviously support my friend and to support this channel. I believe in what you guys are doing. I think it's going to really make a difference. But it's a different time that we're in. Okay,
so we're gonna cut straight to the chase. First of all, Henry Petty says, "What's up, Ron?"
Okay, that's what's happening. More people from JC.
So we're gonna cut just straight to the chase.
Yeah.
First of all, y'all, everybody knows our son Ty Bryant is now at the University of Kentucky. Okay. What, 2 years ago? I think in 2 years, almost 3 years ago, Ron gives me a call and he's like, look, don't y'all mess this up.
Yeah, y'all tripping.
Don't y'all mess this up. This is what's going on. He sat me down. I bet we was on the phone 3-4 hours easily. And he broke down the recruiting process, what that looks like when you get an offer, the difference between a committable offer and a non-committable offer, that whole nine. Ron, can you walk us through the process of that?
Yeah, and I think I'll make this point to start out with is that I think that you have to, as a family, is that you have to understand that college as a concept has been for access to the middle class. So if we just think about why are we doing this? If you have a young person who's super talented in some sports, they can just forego the academic part of it and go straight into professional sports. But in the big revenue sports like football, that's not possible. So you really have to go into this thing saying to yourself, okay, as a vehicle for upward mobility, going to college and earning your degree has been the traditional path of why many people have sought a college education. All right. So if that's why we initially wanted to have access to these universities or to an education in general, then you have to say to yourself, okay, then if that's the case, what outcome moves the needle for your family? It may be in some cases where you have an opportunity to go to a university in a place where you live, and that access to jobs or capital or influence in the future could be a path for you and your family. Well, you could be in a situation where getting opportunity, and this is for a very minute number of players, getting an opportunity to put yourself in position to be, to take the best advantage of your talent and try to be a highly drafted player could be your situation. But for the vast majority of us, we're looking to get our kids into an institution that fits their academic and career interest and do it for the least amount of money and the most amount of impact. And that, to me, has to be one of the things. Now, you may discover that your child is better or worse or not as good or even more talented than you thought initially. But I think every family has to go in and say, okay, what outcome moves the needle for us? Because this thing can get so confusing because the signals that you're getting from the institutions, the signals you're getting from the media that covers it, the signals you get from the people who are looking to be a conduit between you and that level and try to have some kind of influence on you and your family. All of these people have a reason, and most of it's financial, to be involved in the process. So if you really don't know why you're going into this, what the outcomes are for you and your family, then you can be easily thrown off accidentally, on purpose, clout chasing, stub your toe. You can find yourself in a mess. And here's the way I would describe it. We all have heard about child stars in Hollywood or in the music industry. And I'm here to tell you that the athletics industry is now the sports entertainment business. This is not coaching. This is not teaching like it used to be. We are in the sports entertainment business. And so when you think about that, when you think about the child stars of our, growing up or in music and acting, Hollywood, we know they're full of bad, sad, tough stories. And what do they always have? Some kind of division between the child star and the parent. An agent or a studio decides that they want to gain control of this young person. The same thing happens in our sport. And I think if you're not really clear, if you're not really clear on why you're doing this, then this will do to you. It will decide what to do with you. And I think that that's where so many families get frustrated or get thrown off in what's happening, and they're unsure, and then they can take the advice can go a lot of different ways. So that's probably the first thing, is to really understand college as a concept, and there's a lot of people who are going to go to these institutions who are going to send their children to just reaffirm their process or their class in life. So there's a lot of people who are sending their children to an institution to find a mate. Maybe the finances is not that big of a deal, but they want them to find someone who attends that institution because for them, that's their social network. Okay. That may be at a university, that's statewide university. That might be in a nationally renowned institution. That might be at a small liberal arts college. It might be at a regional college. But there's a lot of people who they want their child to live, marry, stay close to them. And so they have a vested interest in their child going there for a lot of variety of reasons, where we're thinking maybe as access to professional life or middle class, right? There might be some people who are already at that level and they're trying to figure out how they're going to maintain that. So there's all these different motivations. And I think that people always assume that everybody else's motivation is similar to theirs. But you're gonna see some people in college, they're set. Their families are set, and so they might be in a major that may not have a direct economic impact on their future. And they're there to study something that may be more abstract or theoretical. And our children are going there saying, hey, I want to accomplish something while I'm here. So everybody's motivation is different. And then I would say the next thing is from a funding standpoint, you have to be honest up front. What are your needs, wants, demands, and desires? Because do these match the academic and athletic credentials that your child has? So you may have a lot of wants and needs, desires and demands, but what if the athletic potential, empirical evidence, and the academic record doesn't match that? You might say, hey, I'm really liking what I'm seeing with this Hendon Hooker deal. I'm thinking 8 million sounds good. And little Johnny runs a 5.2 40. Okay. And then your feelings are hurt because you like, hey, I thought this NIL thing, you know what I mean? So you have to really have empirical evidence. You talking about, okay, I want to send my child to Stanford or Harvard, and little Bobby's got a 2.4. It's not happening. It's not happening. I don't care how high he can jump.
So, Coach, can you talk about that a little more? Talk about, because I feel like nowadays parents have a very skewed perspective of their child's capabilities, to say the least. And so it's like, we're in this zone where everybody gets a trophy. You get a participation trophy, a good luck trophy, a nice try trophy, right? Everybody's getting a trophy and saying job well done. But when you go to correct a child, or you go to say like you're not good enough athletically to be on the field at this time, or whatever the case may be, we're seeing parents who want to write letters and talk about how their kids should be on the field because, for whatever reason, right? My kids should be starting. How do you deal with that as a coach? And then what do parents need to know about just sports in general so that they have the right perspective and they can view their child's capabilities through the correct lens?
Absolutely. I would say that the what I had here as number 5 on my list is what are the range of probable outcomes. So I have 6 points that I talk to every family about that goes through this. It's like college is a concept. Why are we doing this? Access to the middle class or upwards. Funding. What are your needs, desires, wants, and demands? Does it match the talent? Number 3, the college selection process. This is the most dangerous part of the process. Number 4, matriculation process. This is the least executed part of the process. And then what are the range of probable outcomes? And then lastly is distance, the forgotten expense for family. And those are the 6 things I talk about. So let's talk about this right now. If your child is a prodigy at a young age, whether it's musical instrument, academically, if he shows some kind of really outstanding talent at a very young age, most parents feel compelled to try to develop that talent. And what they fail to understand is there's an 8th grade superstar in every town in America. Every 8th grade has a great player.
Absolutely.
And when you start to look at how boys develop, since we're talking about the game of football here and basketball, perhaps, some boys get to 8th grade and then that's it. Their 8th grade superstar doesn't grow an inch taller. Okay. Some guys are completely underdeveloped and they still have that desire to play a sport, or maybe they have a particular skill academically. And I think that the parents always want to believe and show that belief in their child and have that confirmation in the child. That's important for kids, right? We all know that. You don't want to tell a child, you can't do it, or what, use some kind of negative motivation to trick them into playing harder. No, it doesn't work. But what you also have to understand is there's an immense amount of talent. And what I would say that is changed from when I entered the business so many years ago, but I became quickly aware of when I went to coach at Cornell, was that it was becoming a global admissions game. And so what you're seeing is a lot of families see through a straw. They can only see their athlete, and they can only see his talent, and they project onto the rest of the business that child's talent. But there's no empirical evidence, because this beauty at that age is in the eye of the beholder. And so you see some players who get completely over recruited because maybe they're in a high traffic area. So that particular high school, let's say, certain places like South Florida, New Jersey, or Southern California, there have been some traditional hotbeds, could be some places in Texas, where if you're a good player, you're gonna have a lot of traffic coming through or if you're at a good school, you're gonna get a lot of traffic coming through there with a lot of college coaches. And you might be somebody else who's in a different area that's maybe not typically highly recruited in your sport. And so you may say, man, it would be nice to be, evaluated by a really nice school and maybe get a chance to go to college. But the way things are now, your video's national and international. Somebody calls you one day and says, hey, we're at the University of XYZ. We think you're terrific. We'd like to get to know you better. This is where the game gets confusing, because then you're saying, okay, I got a phone call from XYZ University, so I can play at XYZ University. That's not necessarily the way it's going down. And college coaches, assistant coaches, they don't have $250,000 to give you and your child. They're representing the university, which has a certain number of scholarships allotted to them that they're allowed to give. But the CEO of that sport, in this case, the head football coach, is the only person who can tell you that you have a scholarship. Yeah. And they're the only one who can receive your commitment. So a lot of times someone will say, well, I'm being recruited by so-and-so. Well, you're really not. You might be, but in a lot of cases, you're being recruited by the coach who has that area. It's his job to scout that area. And maybe he has to appease the high school coach because the high school coach has been good to them in the past. Or maybe the high school coach is an alumnus, or he's just a, very, personable guy and likes to, give people a good positive feeling about themselves when he's in their presence. None of that is saying that it's confirmed you can play on that level and or that you have a scholarship at that level. So, Dani, to answer your question, what happens is that you don't have to do anything as a college coach. The inactivity speaks volumes to the player. Mm-hmm. Now, some people, you have two choices, because there's some people and some institutions that so value walk-ons that a lot of parents will simply say, look, I want my kid to come and if he can just be admitted to your school, I'll send him there as a walk-on, because again, that family feels some kind of way about the connection to that school. When I was at Michigan, man, we had like multiple generation players who had played at Michigan. I'm talking about son, grandson, dad, granddaddy, great granddaddy. It was a really beautiful thing to see these families have these names that had gone back years and years and years. When I was at Virginia, I got to coach my second stint there, a young man by the name of Ray Keys. And Ray Keys was the first African-American father-son combination in the football program. His dad was one of the early Black players at Virginia, okay, just in our lifetime. And his son, Ray, got a chance to play that. Man, that was a beautiful thing for that family to do. If you understand the history of some of these schools and how hard it is to get admitted to these schools and everything else, that family took a tremendous amount of pride in the fact that Ray played there just like his daddy did. And I think everybody's motivation is different. Am I looking for an admission spot, or am I looking for a scholarship? Am I looking to be a star? And the schools don't have to do anything. They can just smile and entertain you, and you wearing your stuff, and you clout chasing your new starter jacket or, champion sweatshirt, and they don't have to do anything. And I think that's what gets parents messed up, because they think there's something there, or they're going to project that on to the situation.
Yeah.
It's a funny process. And I think the range of outcomes on if this goes really well and he just surpasses all of our expectations and becomes a high draft pick, or, he doesn't. And the problem is there's no floor. There's a ceiling. Your son or child could be the national player of the year and get drafted in the first round. You can't go any higher than that. But unfortunately, we see every day that there's no floor to the range of outcomes. And I try to tell parents that's what we're working to prohibit. Okay, we don't know the guilt or any innocence of any child who gets caught up in something when they go to college, but you can see the impact that's going to have on their life when their name gets mixed up with different things. And we all know what those look like in media nowadays. So you can have a kid who is, really vibrant, has an injury, he doesn't play, he gets his degree, has a successful life. You could have a range of outcomes where the young man, really struggling, being away from home, and decides this is not for me. I don't know why I did this. If I came to this school, I couldn't get my major. I'm coming home. There's such a wide range of outcomes. And I just feel like people don't think about the range of outcomes when they think about the recruiting process. Like, why are we doing this? What is our cost basis that we just have to have met? Who is going to influence our child? One of the biggest things, I don't know why anybody would let somebody not related to them take their child across state lines to go see a college. Now, come on now. Now, you tell me, give me a scenario in which you would let somebody take your child, your daughter or your son, and they're not related to you, and take them across state lines. Guess what? They do it every day in this sport. There's an AAU coach, a 7-on-7 coach, and a high school coach or assistant coach. And some of these people are very well-meaning. But when you then say, take my child to these universities all over the country or regionally, I mean, sometimes you got to stop and just think about this, like old school parents, like, come on now. And we do it because we think that these intermediaries have like some magic. And the reality is, a lot of people who are very well-intentioned eventually find themselves being college coaches, or they find themselves being varsity coaches. Well, how do they get in that position? Well, every year they seem to bring a group of young people from a particular area around to see schools. Well, on the surface, that's a very positive thing, getting these kids access to see colleges, right? That's a positive thing. But if you're listening to this podcast, you're deeply involved in your kid's life. That's not the group I'm talking to on this. On Hits and Heels, they're not talking to the masses. So if you're listening to this podcast, what you are is you are trying to crack the code on how do I help my child, but I'm still an integral part of this process. That means I need to be informed. That means I need to understand, okay, am I going to send my child all the way across the country where I'm going to spend all of their college money, if we've saved it, just flying out there to see them? You fly out to see them. They don't have time to visit with you. They got stuff they got to do, right? They got night meetings the night before. Maybe they'll see you after the game. If it's a road game that you're going to see your child, they got to immediately get on the bus. And so now the kid feels lonely. He's out there, some different part of the country than where you live. And people don't think about these range of outcomes. and they don't think about the process of who is taking my child around. And if they're taking your child around, and if, let's say, he is a talented player and he sits in with the head coach, and they come back and say, hey, so-and-so, mom, dad, grandma, I got offered by the head coach of such and such. Well, you wasn't there. You didn't hear it the way you needed to hear it.
Right.
You didn't hear it the way it came out. That you've lived more life. You hearing if this is like, you're like, hold on, I don't know if that was really an offer.
Right.
Now, maybe I can't go to 30 schools and have that kind of interaction. So maybe I need to think about the range of outcomes, and I need to think about the selection process, and I need to think, okay, how many of these schools can I effectively take my son or daughter to go be involved with learning more about these institutions? And I think that's the biggest thing that I've seen in my career, was the number of parents who have turned their children over. I'm not going to call them complete strangers, but they're not blood kin either.
Right.
And to have a group of them going all around the country and unsupervised, basically.
So what resources, I mean, other than you, what resources are available for parents to understand this process and the dangers that are out there? How can parents better educate themselves on the recruiting process, and also understand that recruiting it can't just be athletics. There's an academic component to it, because yes, you may be getting recruited for a sport, but there's an academic requirement. There are academic standards that are accompanied with every sport.
That's a great question. I'm going to give you two things in the affirmative, and then I'm going to give you one thing that's going to blow your mind. So I think an underutilized resource is the NCAA website. Okay. So if you go ncaa.com or org or whatever, I think it's org, you will find a lot of explanations about what I just talked about. You'll find the standards, you'll find the protocols, you'll find the recruiting windows, you'll find a lot of definitions. Here's the negative part of it. Sometimes it is written in a little bit of legalese or lawyer talk. So I think it's good that you can call the NCAA with questions and ask clarification. You can call the compliance officer at any university that's near you or that you're interested in. So, let's say I'm living here in Indiana. I call up the University of Indianapolis, and I just cold call their compliance officer, say, hey, I have a question. My child's a Division II athlete. You're a Division II school. Tell me how the rules for, initial eligibility and how scholarships work. They'd be more than happy to answer that question. And people, they're weirded out about it because they think they can only talk to a coach. Yeah. Or, you call Purdue and you say, or, hey, I have a question. What does it mean to be, this, whatever the question is. And they have big staffs now where they will take that call. So the NCAA and the member institutions are good sources. But to magnify what you're saying and the question you're asking, we all know that people have gone to prison for this. So feel me. This college.
I got this. Look, I'm sipping my tea on that, coach.
This college admissions process has changed so dramatically that there are people who have been coaches at very prominent schools in sports that you and I may not even be thinking about. And their admissions office gives them a certain number of kids that they can get admitted to the institution every year to field their team. Right. And there are people who have gone to jail, not only been indicted, but convicted for peddling those spots for cash.
Ooh.
Now, what does that tell you? And some of these are stars. Some of these are like movie stars. Some of these are people who are very prominent, and they had to go do jail time.
Oh yeah, like what school was that? Stanford?
There's a number of them.
It was in the California system, right?
And some Ivy League schools.
Yep.
But I'm not going to name the institutions because some of the cases are still pending. I'm not going to name the sports.
Gotcha.
But what am I telling you? I'm telling you that this is such this idea of what are you trying to gain as a concept out of college admission? Like, what is this? What you have to decide straight up front. What am I trying to accomplish? There are lots of when I was a head coach at Kansas State, I was shocked by the number of parents who were just straight up with me, like, Coach, hey, all that academic talk that you come in here talking is good, but my son needs to make the NFL because I don't want to work anymore.
Wow.
And it's crazy that people have that mentality, like, I'm going to use my child to live my dreams, right? But not understanding that
it was startling to me.
Less than 2% of NCAA Division I athletes go pro. So if you are already at what's considered the top tier level of play, and only 2% of y'all are gonna go pro, 98% of y'all top tier athletes got to go do something else.
But my baby's in the 2%. He was an 8th grade all-star. You ain't trying to hear me. You ain't feeling me. That woman told me straight up, Dani, all that academic talk you talking sounds good, Coach. My son needs to go to the NFL because I don't want to have to work anymore. And let me tell you something. She was dead serious.
But I bet she had no clue about his ability to be able to go pro.
Well, all I'm saying
or was he good enough?
He ended up not being good enough.
Right.
But the point was her reality was not going to accept that from me. So that's why I say, like, the people watching Hits and Heels, that, you know, your audience is trying to be better informed. I would say at the same time, I'm not here to kill anybody's dreams. That was my big thing with Terri. I'm not here to kill anybody's dreams. What I'm saying is you have a range of outcomes in mind. And for it, depending on what your situation is, and most people don't want to talk about the reality of their financial situation. Okay. So if I need to have if my son needs to be on a full ride for him to earn his bachelor's degree, okay, if that's real, then I need to be thinking about, okay, where can he get admitted, play, and if he's good enough to get recruited, be able to go and play and have a positive experience so that A, he's not so overwhelmed with the schoolwork that he's not able to graduate. B, he's not overwhelmed by the football and he'll never be able to physically be, not beat up or whatever. So he can do the schoolwork. It works on both ends of the spectrum.
Absolutely.
And, one of my sons, he got admitted to all the schools that anybody would want to get admitted to, but he said, I want to earn my scholarship and I want to do it like you did that. I don't want you to have to pay. I want to show myself that I can do it. And he went to a school that none of us thought that he would go to, and he did great. And he graduated in 3.5 years, and he's got a great job now. And it's like, okay, that child, he decided to articulate what his objective was, but what if he wasn't able to communicate that because mom and dad had never shared with him what the situation was?
Right.
I told him, hey, if you want to go to school X, Y, and Z, we had a great experience at that school. We know that school. We'll pay for it. So he was like, okay, all right, that's good information to know. But then he came back and said, you know what? I want to do this. I want to do this myself. And I had a lot of respect for that. But I think unless you really can communicate honestly, and then let's say you don't have a lot of money saved up for college, like the distance that your child goes away has a double impact, because now you're taking off from work on Friday with 2 connections or a connection on a flight, renting a car or getting Ubers and a hotel and flying back on Sunday. And you're going to do that for 4 or 5 years. So a lot of folks don't think about the financial impact, and they're thinking about, okay, I like the uniform color, or I like this coach, or I like that school, or they win, or what have you. And I think that the range of outcomes has to be honestly discussed between all of the parties that are involved. And that means the child and the parents, and that may be two sets of parents. That may mean grandparents. Everybody who's involved needs to sit down in the beginning and say, you know what, if God blessed him and he had the ability to do it, we think he would love to do this. But if not, we need to do this. And if not, we need to do this. And really, but that sensitivity to talk about those things. And then, like I said, empirical evidence. What is his GPA? What is his SAT score? No one wants to talk about these things because they may not be, we're saying he can do it. No, they have to have objective standards.
Yeah. And can I just, and going along the lines of that, I just want to make a comment here, because I was working at a private school, and there was like some sort of parent session. Mm-hmm. I can't even remember exactly what it was, but I remember a mother stood up and said, my son, can someone encourage my son to, about his major? He wants to be a sport management major. And I told him, ain't no money in that. You got to do something different. And, I was immediately offended because I'm a sport management major. Mm-mm. And then went on and got a free ride to grad school and got my master's in athletic administration with a concentration in sports sociology.
Right.
And so my response was, in the most kind and tactful way I could in that moment, was to say, there is money out there for whatever your major is. Mm-hmm. Period. It's not the major that you choose. It's what you do with it. It's the experiences that you gain and pour yourself into while you're in school, outside, because he was a football player too. So it's like, outside of playing football, you've got to give your son the freedom to explore what he wants to do with his life. He's not responsible at the age of 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 to take care of you. He's not at that level yet. He should still be able to live his life, and don't kill your child's dreams. Like, don't be like Joseph's brothers, faking his death so they can have what they want. And I feel like I shouldn't even say a lot of parents. Some parents have that mindset, like, you need to go out there and choose something that's going to make you some money, because now you got to take care of me. Most kids want to take care of their parents, right? Like, you want to be successful so that you can give back to your parents. But to say you're obligated to have this major so that you can do for me while you're still growing up, it's a wild perspective.
Let me steel man this argument for a second. I'm going to give you both sides of this scenario. There are some families, and I don't try to cast any judgment on what people want. People want what they want.
Yeah, they do.
And the way I look at it is, as long as if you can articulate what you want and you're willing to go after what you want, you're probably going to get it. Unless some calamity befalls you, an accident or something like that. Right. I think we would all argue that if the rules were different, Maurice Clarett probably should have been able to go straight to the NFL after his first year at Ohio State.
Absolutely.
But there are certain sports where they're not allowed to do that. Why is that? We have to ask those questions. We have to understand who benefits from keeping the players in the positions that they're in.
So this is so funny because Terry knows, like, this is my jam. This is that sociological perspective of.
But my point
into sports.
But my point is, it's the same thing with the parents, because if you think about it, if you say to yourself, okay, I'm going to send my child through my hard work, their hard work, we're going to develop, whether I think it's appropriate or not, or whether it's my plan, is immaterial. If that family planned to have a child that we all know now, his name is LeBron James, how would I look sitting here telling him that he should got his degree in law?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And now you're a billionaire.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And because I can't look into the family and say, okay, you know, you've got free will, you got free agency now to make these decisions. I can also say, I've seen a lot of child stars not work out good.
Yeah.
And I think that what we have to do is we have to say that if someone makes a decision like Myron Rolle to go to Florida State and then not pursue the NFL after a year to go become a neurosurgeon, he's just as rare in his own right as some of these people that we're mentioning. But the range of outcomes, and we actually got involved with recruiting him when I was at Virginia, and he's a very special young man. I got news for you. We recruited a lot of cats like Myron Rolle. And a bunch of them probably had the same academic desires, but at the various schools they went to, those degree programs were not available to them if they wanted to play football. I know a Hall of Fame coach who openly tells his players, if you want to play in NFL, come to my school. If you want to be a doctor, go to Vanderbilt. Well, that's a decision that a family needs to make.
Yeah.
And depending on what your ambition is, and that's why I say the range of outcomes for every family is going to be different based on their circumstance. I mean, what if they have, a handicapped person in their family and they need the medical, all those things, right? You never know what people are going through. It's different. It's a different approach than we took, but we never imagined that our children would have to take care of us. It was about what are you going to do to set yourself up for a successful life and a successful career. We weren't as interested. We wanted the kids to look at what the economy needed and then try to take their skills and try to get credentialed in such a way that they could make the most immediate impact on the economy. And then at another stage that we teach them inside the home, that then you buy your freedom financially, and then you go do all the things that you might have a passion for after you make your money. So I could never sit down with a recruit and say, well, you should do what I'm doing, because our situations are different.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of families don't talk through the range of outcomes. And I think that's where people get disappointed, and people have to have that understanding of who is influencing your child. If that lady in particular, if she's saying, can one of y'all tell my son, what I would tell her is that that's a conversation that you two, or maybe whoever else is involved in that decision-making scenario, y'all should have already discussed this and come to some kind of agreement on this. But instead of trying to get the community writ large to sell him on your vision, y'all need to have a vision. That's how I would.
I also think it's embarrassing and can ultimately damage a child, a young man or young woman who has a dream and a vision for what they want to do with this degree. I mean, he wanted to have this major since he was in like early middle school, late elementary, something like that. So this was a dream of his. And I think sometimes, like you said, having conversations about what's available and what we see as a family and what we need as a family, but then also understanding that your child's education and their dreams may not align with what you feel needs to be done. And I think that somehow, in some way, there has to be, and maybe it's encouraging your child, hey, you know what, we don't have it, but I'm going to support you in doing this. So we're going to sit down and we're going to write 50 scholarship applications or whatever the case is.
Absolutely.
You know, so I think it's definitely pulling in what you're saying. I think it's so important to understand and for students to understand that what the family's capabilities are to financially support, right?
And it's personal. You putting a lot of personal information and sensitive information in the hands of a 16-year-old.
Listen,
you know, and you're like, hey, here's all of our family business. And you know what? I think that's reasonable. I think with and let me say it this way. We've got a situation in our country right now where a lot of young people went to colleges and got degrees that the open market does not value.
Absolutely.
And so now they sitting here with loan debt. As a country, we're trying to figure out what to do about that. And I believe that a lot of that comes from the name of the school being valuable. And so if I get a degree from that school, then that signs my ticket to the future. That might have been a paradigm in another era, but that's not necessarily the case anymore. And what we see is so many people are so ill-informed. So I help you ask, where do people go? There are people out there who try to give advice. I think for most people, their high school coach in a perfect world would be that person to say, okay, how good is my child? Yeah. Go to the guidance counselor. Okay, how strong of a student is? I understand what his grades are, but you see a lot of applications. What are the kind of schools that he's likely or she's likely to get admitted to, recruited by? And you know, I spent the last couple of years, particularly with the pandemic, talking to a lot of parents because there were no scholarships for high school kids the last 2 years.
Yeah.
I should say there were fewer. I'm not going to say there were none. If you were an elite player, like some of the people that we know, then yes, you were gonna have that opportunity. But for a lot of young people, that transfer portal player from a different level was going to take that spot that traditionally might have gone to a high school kid. Absolutely. And so I've tried to have some disappointment management and help some families process, because they're thinking from a historical norm, I should have been a scholarship athlete. And I would say yes, but this is an atypical historical moment. Yeah. So we need to take a look at where's the best fit for you academically, socially, family finance wise, and it may include you walking on to be at the right school. Yeah. And then if the things break and then a bunch of people transfer out of your place, you in place, and then now boom, you pop, and so strategically, that's what I've been doing. And there's a couple things I spend my time doing. This is one of 3 buckets that I spend my time advising families to be realistic in this process, and then what questions to ask when you get in the room. Here's a really fascinating thing. Your child is much more likely to get in front of the decision maker without you. Yeah, that's scary because
it's not scary. But coach, how many times have parents messed things up?
Oh, Lord Jesus. Here's one of the things that happens. I tell a story about a mom who was kept asking about the academic program at the particular school that I was coaching at. And her son's grades were poor. It was going to be a stretch to get him in school, and it was going to be a stretch to keep him in school. His talent was immense, though. He went on to be a first round pick at another school. He didn't come to our school because she kept asking about the academic program. And the head coach finally said, "Ma'am, I've seen your son's transcript, and it's clear to me you don't give a damn about his academics."
Right.
So I was like, well, I just wasted 4 years recruiting him. He ain't coming, but the point of it is it's one of those things where, hey, a kid might, let's say I'm living in, Minnesota, and the University of Minnesota is recruiting my kids. But I'm thinking, man, I've loved watching USC on TV. I'm holding out for Southern Cal. You don't know that Southern Cal ain't studying Minnesota. They're not thinking about coming to Minnesota to recruit, but maybe they do. I'm not trying to kill your dreams, but what if they don't? And now you sit up there and then told the Minnesota coach, when he offers your child a scholarship, you should have been saying, done, we'll take it. Nah, bruh, I'm looking for you. I'm waiting for Lincoln Riley to come through that door. Or I'm looking for, my boy down there at so-and-so school, he said he gonna come through and he gonna scoop us up. And then you get to signing day and you sitting there looking crazy. And now you go into last chance you.
Right. Coach, expound on that, please. I think that's probably, okay, we're in January. So we have signing day getting ready to come up. Yes. If you're an unsigned senior right now, right, and you have offers on the table and you have not committed, you're in trouble.
If you do not have a committable offer, then you need to start thinking about the range of outcomes that I just discussed, which could be anything from going to prep school for another year, going to a junior college, reclassing, walking on at a school that you want to really go to if you've got the money, and then hope that, and work your way up through that way. Or, hey, I'm going to go to a smaller school and ball out, get a lot of playing time, and in 2 years hit the portal and then try to, make a name. Like we talk through a range of opportunities and outcomes. But if you're at this late date and you don't have an offer, if you're on somebody's list, you could get a call on signing day. It's not a high percentage. It could happen. But if you got the flip side of that is if you have an offer and somebody wants you to say yes, and that's your only offer, and you waiting for school B over there to just roll up, I don't know about that.
Right. I think I've had a
conversation. That's on you. That's on you and your family. That's on y'all, right? I mean,
I've had a couple conversations, and I talked to some players, and they were like, "Well, I got this offer," and I'm saying, football season's over with. You're seniors. You're done with high school football. So why didn't you commit? Why haven't you committed? But again, they're not understanding the process, because right now the transfer portal is open, correct?
Yes.
Right. So again, it's wide open right now. Wide open. And so as a parent, again, we're still talking about an 18-year-old child that doesn't really understand the process. As a parent, you don't understand the process. Yes. And so you have
But you got more life experiences than an 18-year-old. But
you have more life experiences than your child. And it's time to make a decision. And if the decision is we want to play college ball on the next level, we have the one offer or one or two offers, then I'm looking at again, what is our outcome? What is the diameter of these schools that we're looking at? Now, if the only offer we have is 1,800 miles away, that's all we got. And then we just gonna have to figure out. And I love how you talked about it. I'm not going to make every game, because financially it doesn't make sense, but that was your only offer. So we just got to make it work as a family. Right. So, you know, cool. I'll see you on family day, whatever that family day is, or I'll pick this particular day to come to a game, but I'm not getting ready to make every game.
Coach, we have 4 kids playing at the same time.
I don't know how
we had 3 in college, 1 in high school.
That's crazy.
Dani, I wasn't trying to fly either. I'm cheap. I got in the car and drove every Friday morning to wherever the location was, see them at the hotel, hug their neck, tell them good night, get up the next day, stand in there, watch the game. Maybe if it's a home game, take them to dinner, go back, get some sleep, get in the car, drive back on Sunday. But it was
my parents used to do that though when my brother played football at Amherst. I remember them.
But I mean, even if I wanted to, I wasn't going to get to more than 2 games for each one of them.
Yeah.
And then at some point, I'd just be like, "Look, we're going to watch it here at home." You know, we got
what's that streaming code?
Right, we got Flow Sports, we got ESPN.com. You know what, or Plus. I mean, you know, but and it's one of those things where we all understood that was part of it. Okay.
Yes.
You know,
we sat down as a family and we understood that was,
and we said, hey, look, that's right. Here's the dynamic. Now we're fortunate that we're gonna have 2 of ours on the same team. We got one that's graduated from college and he's gonna grad transfer and go where his little brothers. So hey, you know what? We gonna still need to go see sis row. Right. You know, so you know, we gonna I'm gonna see my baby girl row. So you know, that's but we're gonna have a better chance, you know. But I think that the biggest thing I would just tell parents is parents are very funny about discussing things with the children because they feel like the children can't handle the information. But if they can't handle the information, they can't handle this kind of decision. I mean, we talking about $200,000-$300,000 here.
Right.
Absolutely. Right.
We ain't playing this. This ain't nothing to play with. Right. This is too big of a decision for, you know, to just let an 18-year-old say, "Well, I like the colors," or I like Coach so and so. Well, you know, Coach so and so might already have a new job lined up to leave next Wednesday, and then you sad.
Come on,
Coach. Can you touch on how that works?
Oh yeah, anybody. I mean,
how do you do your homework as? Again, that's part of the homework. You know, if I'm looking at even, I mean, I'm looking at, well, I guess it's the pros. So I can't really say to the pros, but you know, we got one and done coaches now.
It's a trickle down though.
They're getting fired, and so how do you look at it as a family? Like, look, we got to look at this thing. What is the record for the last couple of years? You know, where are they in their contract? You know, what is the chances of this coach getting ready to leave?
I think, you know, so I think all of that is good and well, but you know what I'm going to tell you, for me, it's always real estate, location. Yeah. I don't care if it's Harry Belafonte or if it's, you know, Luke Combs coaching. I don't care, and anywhere in between.
Right.
What is the location? This is a real estate decision for us. It's a real estate decision. Where do we live? Where's this child going? How much is it going to cost? How much can we get there? What's the impact of the economics? What's the degree program? Now, this is just us.
Absolutely.
But if I'm sitting there thinking, I have to think about all those things, but there's a trickle down effect. You could have coach so-and-so at a particular school, and he's been there a long time, been very successful, and his assistants love him, and you know, mom's a good guy, dad's a good guy, everybody lovey-dovey, they dap up, man. You just see them, man, they just got the best. Everything is great, and then boom, 2 of the assistants get a chance to go coach for the Dallas Cowboys.
Right, come on now, the Dallas Cowboys.
You know, I threw that out there for you, but you know,
I know because your boy just walked in the door.
Yeah, there you go. All right, Coach.
What's up, Coach?
That's right. or let's say, you know, a new AD comes in. They trying to hire a basketball coach. He fell out with your football coach 25 years ago with a school that you don't even know that they were at together.
Right.
And so we get to a point where, you know, the coach, you know, or somebody go out and do something they're not supposed to do, touch something they're not supposed to touch, then boom. You got to make this decision based on the program.
Well, yes.
And the education that you are seeking to attain.
If any of that is in love with the coaches.
Right.
A lot of people love football, but football loves no one.
No.
Yep.
Come on, babe. Hold on. Interruption.
I have a question. As I was driving, how you doing?
Hey, Coach.
I'm good, Coach. How we doing?
How y'all doing? Okay, you made a comment. I think y'all was talking. I was listening to it on the way home. That a player gets Minnesota and he wants SC. Okay, he wants SC. I think a lot of time when young kids get that D1 offer from that school, they feel like they D1 at every school. And I think sometimes that's why they hold out. Because if you get one offer from an SEC school, you think all SEC schools should want you. And because I heard y'all say that, and in my mind, that's what a young man told me yesterday. He got an offer from a school in the division, but he always liked that school in that conference. I shouldn't say division, that conference. So he's holding out for that conference because the coach has followed him on Twitter. Okay.
I ain't here to kill his dreams. Yes. God bless him. I hope it works, but it's hard to pay bills with feelings.
Right. But what I'm getting at is that's the mindset as well.
Yeah.
Because
and you know what?
If that coach doesn't follow him on Twitter, he won't think about that school. He thinks, "Ooh, they're looking at me," which ain't true. That coach follows 10,000 people on Twitter.
Yeah. I mean, God bless him. I mean, that's why everybody got free will. God gives you free will. And, you know, like I heard a guy tell me one time, you know, in this country, everybody got freedom. You're free to be dumb. I'm not here to tell anybody what they should or shouldn't do. Nobody.
But that's a level of expectation that I love that you totally hold on. If we was to recap this whole conversation, is the level of expectation has to be changed. You know, you really have to look at this totally way more realistically. Because
this is a business decision, but nobody wants to talk business.
Yeah,
they want to talk.
It's got to be a business decision. Yes.
And I just think that, you know, nobody thinks about the fact that there's no floor to the bad outcomes. They can only see the ceiling of great outcomes. And a lot of people leave this game broken physically, broken mentally. Their spirits are broken. We only hear about the 200-300 kids who get drafted next year. And we're not focused on the fact that even if you are a great player, I was at a camp with my son 2 years ago, and the great quarterback Chad Pennington was there with his son, played at West Virginia.
Chad, you know, that's our boy.
And he made the statement, you know, Coach, the ball stops spinning for all of us someday. And this man was first round draft pick.
Absolutely.
Okay. I mean, it's not like this guy was like some frustrated, you know, guy who never got to play, but he had enough awareness to say, I want my son. And we were just talking about what is it like, you know, when you grow up in, you know, when your kids grow up in this business. And most of them aren't that worried about the clout of where they go. If they want to walk on at a great school, like Kirk Herbstreit, right? His kids walked on or whatever. They're at Clemson somehow, whether they scholarship or not. That's what they wanted. Okay. He's Ohio State guy. You see a lot of coaches' kids at a lot of different schools. Why? Because that coach has figured out who the people are, what's important about that location, what the family's needs are, and it works for them. And I think a lot of people who aren't in the business have a different set of expectations because of what they see on TV, in the media, movies. I'll tell you the biggest thing that worries me about kids is when they go on official visits. Because there's so much out there in the media and in movies and TV shows about, I'm gonna go on an official visit and we're gonna be wild, man. We just gonna have a great time. We're gonna party and we're gonna, you know, woo, 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 and all this. And it's like, if that's the way you think when you go into on a job interview,
Right.
Official visit's a job, is
It's
an
job
interview.
Yes.
So that tells me that you probably not going to be the guy when it's all said and done who's going to get the job offer at the bank or the lending institution or at the engineering firm or in the NFL when you go to the combine. And now you got to account for all the craziness that you did while you was, wilding out. And the fact that it was never a business decision, it was just chilling and we're hanging out or having fun. I get all that, but this is a business. And the people who are making the decisions, they do it every year. Guess what? They're going to do it again next year when your decision's over.
Wow.
That's real talk. Real talk. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So,
we're going to have to bring, because there's still so much stuff that we still need to unlock about the recruiting process. I want to do a deep dive.
If people want to hit me up, if people want to hit me up on calendly.com /Boss and Bull, BOSSANDBULL. And
wait. Say that one more time.
Calendly.com /Boss and Bull, BOSSANDBULL. And they can sign up for a time with me. And I mean,
you're doing that for free, or how much you charging?
Man, Terry, you know me. I can't just off the rip be charging people. I just,
sir, yes, you
that's
can.
What I love about you. I can take a phone anytime. No. Here's the thing. Give me $3,000-$4,000 worth of knowledge in my head. Yes.
Here's the thing. I will take anybody's phone call and then try to see where their heads are at, and then if I can help them, then we sign them up for something where then we do a little something. That's it. If that's what we do, and if it's not that, then I'm doing some other things. But it's a passion of mine because there's no manual, and you can't write a manual because it's always moving. This is like water. You can't harness it, and it's like freestyle, right? You got to take in what's going on around you. It's like battle rapping, and if you try to say that there's a set play you got to run, then it doesn't fit for most of the people. And I would just encourage your listeners and your followers to have a healthy conversation inside at their kitchen table as to what are the range of outcomes that are acceptable for us, and then what's our funding for this, what are our expectations, and what can we afford. And hey, if you've got one of these young people that's really outstanding, hey man, this is a great way to propel yourself into another level. That's a great thing. That's why we're doing it anyhow, right?
Absolutely.
And to maintain our families at that level. So, there's no shame in talking about the monetary side of this or the ambition, but it has to be empirical. We have to have data that suggests, okay, this is where we should be.
We didn't talk, there's so much. We didn't even touch on the whole NIL and your opinion on how that has impacted the whole recruiting process. So
I think the transfer portal, I think the NIL, coaching changes, this would all be a whole nother episode, and I'd be happy to get into that with you all.
Yeah. We'll schedule an encore for that and touch on all those.
Yes.
Not bad for my first time out of the out of the cave. So,
and thank you so much for allowing us to be your first interview since your retirement.
Yes,
I wouldn't do it for anybody else but you. I've turned down so many interviews in the last several years, but for you, I'll do anything.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
See you guys.
My only problem is you only said one thing that wasn't appropriate, and that's that cowboy comment.
There you go. There you go.
All right. Go Niners.
Of course, you wanted to coach or play for the 49ers.
Go Eagles.
Or the Eagles. There you go.
She's an Eagles fan.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, she's an Eagles fan.
Coach, you look good. You look good.
Hey, long time ago.
Yeah.
You can't hit home runs with yesterday. You can't win no games with yesterday's home runs.
Right.
Hey, y'all have a blessed evening.
You too.
Thank you so much, Coach Prince. for joining us. Thank you. You dropped some awesome gems. I hope you all, if you missed any piece of tonight, you have to catch the replay. Head over to youtube.com/Hits and Heels and catch season 1 and season 2, episode 7, which is tonight's show. Thank you so much for joining us, Coach. We love you. We appreciate you. This is good enough to sell. Listen, I'm trying to tell you. Let me know. Holler at me when you're ready to strategize and create your course.
Hey, let's get over there on Patreon and do something.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you again. It's been wonderful. That's all for us tonight. I'm your girl, Dani. That's my girl, Terri. I don't know if there we go. Now I'm pointing in the right direction. And that's the awesome Coach Prince. So thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you catch the replay. Tune in next Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 8 p.m. Central, for episode 8 of Hits and Heels.
Peace.